last one. So now we're fine.
Yeah, we're just sitting there. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so like we already said once last time, last Siman, Ein binyan ustira b'kelim. There is no building and demolishing with kelim, meaning kelim was vessels, meaning things that are not attached to the ground, and additionally, well, he'll probably say it here again, but additionally that they are under 40 sa'ah, which is a 3 cubits, an amma by 3 ammas. So v'hani mili she'ein binyan mamish k'may chavis. This is when are we saying that there is no building and mefaricking and taking apart and demolishing by vessels. This is when there's no actual building going on, like a barrel. Like a.
It's funny.
The Ramah adds she'ein machzekes arbaim saw, that doesn't hold 40 saw, because obviously if it holds 40 saw, then it's considered connected to the ground. So he's talking about a barrel smaller than that size.
So which is why actually in the English here they don't translate a barrel; they translate it as jug. Based on that, we're not talking, because in today's modern vernacular, we say barrel, we picture this giant wine barrel, and I guess back then a chavetz just meant the container.
Container.
You can have big, you can have small. You can have
Shenishbura that broke with dibek shvarel v'zefis, and he took like tar, and he plastered together the pieces that broke. So in such a case, yochel lishaver likach masha b'teicha, you can break it in order to take what is inside of it. Ubilvad, on the condition that what shelo yikav in the nak v'nekev yofa sheyilo lefesach, that he's not intending to make a nice opening, that should be like an opening to it should be a nice opening, a pretty opening.
If you ever see a rabbi and he just goes bangbusters on the box of cereal, or just like smashes open something on Shabbos, you don't think, wow, that's quite the opposite. He's keeping Shabbos by doing that, not making a little opening,
not making a nice little opening.
He's not making it into a keli. He's just Hulk smash, just bust it open.
You have to be careful with the letters too. That's a different story. That's a different thing.
Which is why, it's really going ahead. But I remember someone once said, with regards to the whole shaila and the whole discussion of opening up a can of soda or beer on Shabbos, that one of the better ways to do it, is like the old college rabbi way of crushing it. Stabbing with a knife, and it's better because you're not making a keli. You're just crush it. By breaking that top at the top, it's not making it into a keli.
Right.
Anyway, but that's ask your rabbi about that.
Ask your local rav. The aim that's the motto of our show. Ask your local rav.
Local rav.
So anybody comes tells us, oh, that's very interesting. So what should I do? Ask your local rav.
Exactly.
So the im kain havele misakin mana, because if so, he is fixing. He's making a nice fixing, which means how does he translate it there? It's like basically it comes out to makabepatish is what he's saying.
He doesn't translate tikkun mana, I think, because there's going to be a whole discussion on what exactly that means. Yeah, the definition of tikkun mana. There's notes on it.
So he's doing a tikkun mana too. That's what he's doing. He's doing tikkun mana. Aval hishleima. However, if it is whole, also lishavra afilu b'inyan she'eino isikli, then he's not allowed to break it, even not in a nice way. So we said if it's like we said before, broken and plastered, so he's not making a kli by opening it. However, if he makes a nice opening, then it's a problem. However, if it's a complete jug, then he can't even make a rough opening in it. Va'afilu nekev the Olma Asr Linkev B'Mechadash. He can't even poke a new hole in it. Va'afilu yesh ba nekev chadash, and even if it has a new hole in it, im laharchivay asr, but to widen it, you're not allowed. And the Ramah says ubilvad sheyiskaven lekach, meaning this is if that's his intention is to widen it into a bigger, nice opening, as opposed to he's just trying to. Meaning
am I trying to make a bigger hole so I can pour it out easier, or am I just trying to bust it open so I can get the product
Right.
inside? Meaning, like, either way, you're trying to get the product, but there's a difference in kavanah of I just want it out versus I want it bigger so it pours easier for my convenience. Meaning, I'm actually
And then
utilizing
there's
this as
another
a
level also of it is that when you're making it such that you can now put stuff back into it. In other words, if your kavanah is not just to pour stuff out, but to put stuff in, then you got a much bigger problem.
It's like really reusing that as really using that as
because now you're really making it into a keli. However, if there was a knife that was stuck into the jug from before Shabbos, right? Almost like the knife is being used as a cork, sort of. You're allowed to take it out and put it back in. Because he's not intending to add on to it. Even though sometimes if you'll put the knife in, you might make a little bit of addition. But that's not what you're intending to do. You're just intending to pull it out, pour, and then put it back in. The Rama says that specifically that you took it out already once. Meaning, if you stuck the knife in and left it there and never took it out, so according to the Rama, that's not good enough. You have to not only have stuck it in, but have taken it out. So now you made your opening. I guess because otherwise you're taking it out. You're now making an opening that wasn't there. So you have to put it in, take it out, and then you can put it in and take it out as needed. But if he did not, if he only stuck it in, but did not take it out before Shabbos, also the havi psikresha, because it is cutting off the head, right? It's called psikresha v'layamus. That means meaning it's a certainty. The oisa nekev upesach l'chavis, that you're now making a hole in an opening. Kili she nisrei eya imut little menucheres ayin le'ilsim shinches even dalid. Now as regarding a vessel like this that we said is broken into shards, and right, that's a vessel that's no good anymore. And if you're allowed to take the pieces of earthenware from it, like from the shards, to use them, see before in Shin Ches. Okay, and I guess we'll go into the Mishna Berura part. So he said that specifically when you're not doing actual building, then you're allowed to. Then that's the only time we say that by vessels there is no building and demolishing. And the Mishnah Berura says, "Aval binyan gamur ustir gemura shaycham b'kelim." But complete building and taking apart, this does apply to kelim. And that's why only specifically when it was broken and he stuck together its broken pieces with tar, he's allowed to then break it. The ein zeh stira gemura, because this is not a complete demolishing, because it was already broken before. But if it was complete, then it's complete. You're taking a whole thing and you're demolishing it, and then you can't do that. Even in a small vessel. The Kosva Acharainim, the comments of B'Siftas, and Acharainim write later in subsection 9, the Hani Chavi is Ketani Shel Merkachas, that these small barrels of like jam or something like that, Merkachas. It's like a preserves or something.
Doesn't okay, so it says can't remove the hoops. So this is a jug. I think it's talking about the rebonded fragments.
But what's merkachas? I think it's like preserves.
Oh yeah, of jam. You're right. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I went ahead. With regards to small containers of jam. Yeah.
Right. So also lahasir hachishukim, you're not allowed to take like the straps.
Hoops,
like basically, this is now we're talking about. I think it's talking about a thing that's made out of wood actually, and it's like wooden planks. Like it's like a mini barrel.
Yeah, so if you can see,
yeah,
it's a barrel. So we're talking about
like a mini barrel,
that kind of bind the wood together.
Yeah, so it has staves and it's and then it has a binding. Okay, so you're not allowed to take that binding off.
Small container of jam. It's a mini barrel.
Yeah. In order to take what's inside of it, you cannot break off these rings that go around it basically. And it's not similar to this barrel that we're talking about, that Mechaber is talking about, that is stuck together, it has broken pieces stuck together with tar. The hasam darkem chilo lasis kain because in the case of these jam containers, they are made to be like that. It's not that they're broken. That's how they're supposed to be, right? As opposed to what the Mechaber is talking about is it's an earthenware thing that broke and it got stuck up with tar, but it's not meant to be that way. So it's a broken container. However, however, for asking a non-Jew to do it, this you can certainly permit. Maybe Zion, like later in subsection 7. And when it's tied by ropes, and if it's tied not with like strips that are like these strips, they're basically like strips that are, I don't know if they're glued on or they're like tacked on or whatever, but they're connected to it. However, if it's just held together with a rope, even through a Jew, you can do it. Yeah. So basically, I guess what he's saying is that it's a well, he doesn't say here why you can be matir. Maybe in the notes they'll say something about that. Maybe because it's like a shvus to shvus or something, because it's I don't know.
All right, we'll see the notes. Okay, so we said absolute boina and seiser apply to kalim as well. This is according to the Taisus on the Rush. So then we went ahead and said basically, if the jug was intact, then breaking it constitutes absolute seiser, which is usher even with regards to a small kli, because even a kli that does not have a capacity of 4 saw, as mentioned in the introduction, which we didn't read, but the introduction mentioned that a kli that does have that capacity has the status of a ground structure, right? Which we learned in the previous Siman. We talked about this, that you have a keli, even though it's not mechuber lakarka, even though it's not connected to the ground, if it's large enough to hold 40 saw, like a large closet or a large cabinet, right, or china cabinet or something, then that's like a ground structure to which malacha of seiser applies in all forms. So thus demolishing even an inferior kli of this size, even though it's less than 40 saw, it's still a violation of the malacha. And we'll see further, Mishna Berura note 2. We'll see in the next Mishna Berura. So then the Mishna Berura continued on and said, basically, so you can't remove the hoops, or actually called reifin, in order to access their contents, because these containers were made like miniature wine barrels. A number of wooden boards were held together by wooden strips. And then So then we continue. Now he says it's not comparable to a judge whose fragments are bonded together, because over there it was made to be in this matter from the outset, so it's like an intact kli. Although these containers were made of parts held together by hoops, they're not refurbished. They were made in that way from the outset. It's random parts stuck together to make a container. They therefore have the status of an intact kli, and according to Shulchan Aruch here, the malacha of seiser will thus apply to them. Let's see. We'll see in a footnote soon. But first, we said that nevertheless, having the hoops removed by a non-Jew is totally mutter, as we'll see later in Sif Zayin. Shulchan Aruch rules over in Sif Zayin that one may not break a metal or wooden lock of a kli, in accordance with his view that an absolute seiser applies to kalim. Now, later in the same passage, however, he concludes that since this matter is subject to machlekes, one may have a non-Jew do so. This is in accordance with the general rule that when a matter is subject to dispute amongst the Rishonim, one may rely on the lenient view with respect to instructing a non-Jew to perform the act in question. Shabbos, etc. Similarly, then, one may instruct a non-Jew to take apart these jam containers by removing the hoops. And so note that Mishnah Berura over in note 37 here will cite a view Mishnah Berura Lamed Zayin will cite a view which permits instructing a non-Jew to break the lock only in situations of substantial financial loss, otherwise known as hefsid maruba, or if one feels very pressured due to a mitzvah need. I'm blanking on what the Shulchan Aruch phrase for that is. Or blanking for sorry, gadol or whatever. Like
Yeah, let's say
usually
gadol, yeah.
tzarich gadol is usually the term used. So this view will be explained in footnote M to passage.
I mean, there's either let's say gadol or let's say mitzvah. That's two different.
Tzarich mitzvah, yeah, tzarich mitzvah, yeah. On the other hand, Mishnah Berura seems to side outright with the view that Seiser does not apply to Kalim at all, even though the Mishnah brings it up. But he seems to say that I think it seems the Mishnah Berura seems to say, even according to the opinion that says Seiser applies to Kalim, this would be allowed. Though the Mishnah Berura himself seems to lean towards it doesn't apply to Kalim.
No.
That's what it's saying. So, and then finally Q, a kli. So that was on. Then the final line: if the container is tied with ropes rather than hoops, even having them removed by a Jew is permissible. A yid could even remove them if they're just ropes. Why? Because a kli held together by ropes is considered inferior, despite the fact that it was made this way from the outset. And all agree that cutting them is not forbidden under Seiser. See, we'll see Zayin and Ches below for a similar ruling with regards to the kli that is sealed with ropes. It emerges then that in order for a kli to be considered inferior vis-a-vis the malacha of Seiser, it must either be refurbished or made of inferior materials. This may affect the permissibility of demolishing paper, plastic, or cardboard bags and boxes. And for discussion, you can see the English book Contemporary Halacha Discussions, page 226. Very fascinating sefer that apparently talks about this more.
No, I think it's in the back of the English Mishnah in the back they have a section.
Is that what you're saying?
Contemporary halacha. Yeah,
because there is a book. It's I can almost picture unless I'm thinking something else.
It could be
There's
that they
a
take
black
that from
book.
there.
Oh, you're right. He's talking about in the back. In the chapter in the back, there's a whole paragraph opening cans, bottles, and boxes on Shabbos. So it's a whole long. So yeah, which we can read if you want.
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay.
Yeah,
we're not a week before the Faher Baruch Hashem. Okay.
Yeah.
So opening cans,
time.
bottles, and boxes. What? No, this time. Right?
This time.
Exactly. We're not in rush mode, is what I'd say. Okay. The complicated question of opening cans, bottles, and on Shabbos has been debated at great length amongst contemporary poskim. In the final analysis, there is no consensus as to the practical halacha. Sorry, Charlie. I don't know is the correct answer here. This discussion, however, is to explain. Well, it's kind of like, we had that question of where the Alter Rebbe said tzarich iyun. So we asked, so new, like what's the tzarich iyun? And so we said, listen, you can't really have an answer to it. The Alter Rebbe has a tzarich iyun.
Right, the Alter Rebbe's ending with a tzarich iyun. Like don't even try.
Right. Which, by the way, I wasn't trying to ask for an answer. What is the tzarich iyun? Like, what more is there to discuss? It's one thing if this remains a kasha, but what is the? It's tzarich iyun always seems to me like saying
see, I think that's what they misunderstood was when I was asking, so what's the iyun on it, right? Like what's it called? It wasn't that I was trying to understand what iyun was done on his tzarich iyun. I was trying to understand what his tzarich iyun is.
I'm not trying to be smarter than Alter Rebbe, God forbid. Right. I don't know what Alter Rebbe is saying. I just want to know what he's. Yeah, exactly. So. Okay. So this discussion, however, is to explain the halachic principles involved, familiarize the reader with the main schools of thought regarding this complex subject. There are 6 possible biblical or rabbinic prohibitions one may violate when opening bottles, cans, or boxes on Shabbos. So if you're dealing with boxed wine, you're also, Anyway, so they are, numero uno, kaireya, tearing. Dos, makebepatish. The dritte issue is fashioning an opening, which would also be so. First is makabepatish, that you're completing the formation of said vessel,
right?
It's totally closed box, and now by opening it, you've just
made it something that you can put stuff in and out of.
So what's interesting is, and number 3 is fashioning an opening, which is also a violation of makabepatish. There's 2 different components. There's one is just bechalal, you've completed that, you just turned this into a keli. Right. Before it was just this random brick.
The other one is the fashioning of a spout.
The other one is specifically that you made an opening.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a whatchamacallit. For example,
no, but I think it's also like the fashioning of a spout. You made a nice spout. You made it so you've improved this vessel.
You made an opening.
Even if it was a vessel before, by fashioning of a spout, right? That's why I said before, even if there was an opening in it, right? We just learned if it was an opening it, and you now widened it into a nicer opening, and it's, or alternatively, we said before, if you made an opening nice, that's in other words, you're fashioning a spout. You've improved said vessel.
Improved functionality is makabepatish.
Yeah.
For example, if there was something that was more like a bowl, let's say there was a half a coconut,
Yeah.
and cutting open a coconut Shabbos, we'll get to it, I'm sure, but yeah, Bechlal, you're allowed to actually, but yeah, opening it, let's say it naturally, is a bowl shape. But now if I go and I cut it in a way that it can pour now, that's
Right.
a problem.
Yeah.
I just changed it into an additional
Right. Or if you have a bowl,
function.
alternatively, say you have a wooden bowl. Okay, it's a
Or as they
vessel.
say,
You're allowed to
Stama
use
bowl.
it on Shabbos, but now
Yeah.
if you fashion a spout, you've done you've made an improvement on it. There's another element of makbeh padish.
Well,
So there's one element of opening something into a vessel that was priorly unusable as a vessel, and there's another thing of making of making improvement on a vessel.
I picked coconut because it's a more extreme example than a regular bowl. Regular bowl, someone could obviously, it might be easier for someone to remember. Oh, of course, you're not allowed to be doing construction stuff, tools, and changing.
No, but I'm saying somebody might think that because it's already a vessel, so it's not makbeh
So I
padish.
can change another. I know, I understand, but I'm saying
already.
I use the kol shekem v'kal v'chomer
Right.
of where it's
Well,
an actual
coconut,
food
yeah.
item. The thing itself is food. So you might be,
Right.
so there's no problem with me cutting it up. I'm not allowed to cut
Right.
watermelon. You're allowed to
Right.
cut watermelon, but you can't go and then cut that watermelon into a keli. Which,
Right.
by the way, that's a very nice way of carving watermelon, is to do it in a way where the rind is still the bowl, where you cut it out from in the rind, you cut it into the small squares, and then it just sits in the half.
Yeah.
It's a very nice way of doing that. But yeah, doing that on Shabbos, you gotta be.
It's a problem.
It's
not so simple.
That was so number 4 is erasing. So we got tearing, 2 types of makbeh patish, erasing, moichik, erasing, and mechate, cutting or tearing to a specific size.
Right.
And of course, last but not least, seiser, destruction. Destroying a utensil. In order to avoid violating any of these strict Shabbos prohibitions, it is highly advisable and strongly recommended that one open all bottles, containers, and wrappings before the Sabbath Kodesh. Most people have a mental checklist of things to do on Erev Shabbos, and opening boxes, bottles, and bags of food and drinks should be on that list. Should we try to do? We try to open the cereal boxes and the orange juice container and Our discussion, therefore, is aimed at those who forgot or they failed to prepare properly for Shabbos. Some of us too busy learning Shulchan Aruch and Erev Shabbos to get our list done properly. So, Tosefta and Maseches Beya, background and basic principles. Tosefta and Maseches Beya, so we're talking about a Brisa, Mishna level stuff, cites the following halachic decisions, which is quoted by all the poskim. Which, I have to say, by the way, I just finished Maseches Shabbos for a shloishim that was yesterday.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of Masechah Shabbos. It's funny how when you're learning Shabbos, naturally you're gonna pick Masechah Shabbos. Yeah.
So there was a couple of things that were like, I was like, oh, wait a second. First of all, there's 2 things. Number one is I found out that the entirety of Perek Yutes it's so Jewish to go off subject, and it talks about bris. Because the end of Yud Ches brings up bris, so then it segues into the entirety of chapter 19 is all about Mila, not even with regards to Shabbos Mila,
right?
Just Stam Mila.
Why? Because he was discussing Mila already. So
because 18 he talks about Shabbos Mila, so then it gets into just while we're at it, if you cut it this way it's kosher, if you cut it that way it's not, etc. But another thing that I just thought was a cute vart was a quote from Rabbi Shimon, who talks about anointing yourself with like rose oils and perfumes, that kind of thing on Shabbos. So it says the royalty, the princes, Bnei Malachim, they're allowed to do it on Shabbos. And Rabbi Shimon says, Yisrael, Bnei Malachim Haim. Yidden are royalty, which I thought was beautiful. And my wife was like, why is that not a song already? Like, that should be a Jewish song. Like, hello. And it's really beautiful. So you'll see it and you'll really enjoy it. I think it was the end of Perek Yadalit or Tesvav. It was very nice. Anyway. Okay. So the Savda Beya basically brings a halachic decision, which is quoted by all of the poskim, Beis Yosef, the Magen Avram, the Mishna Berura, the Alter Rebbe, and the Chayei Adam. It is permitted on Shabbos to rip the skin, meaning in old times the skins were used to seal barrels, right? So you're allowed on Shabbos to rip those skins off, not chas v'shalom skin off people's bodies, but the skin off of a barrel or a container off the top of a barrel, as long as there's no intention of creating a spout. You're just trying to get the stuff. I'm not trying to create a pouring thing. I just want to open up the whole thing. There is a great deal of controversy amongst the poskim as to why this is allowed, since it's prohibited to tear on Shabbos. So why are you allowed to do this kind of tearing? Several explanations are given, but let us focus on the 2 basic approaches. First, the Chayei Adam, which is followed also by the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the Shabbos, Igros Moshe, Chazon Ish, also follows this approach, but explains it a little differently. And the Binyan Shabbos. Okay, so yeah. So the Chaya Adam explains it's permitted because the ripping is done in a destructive manner. Since the cover is being ripped off and destroyed, it's not considered tearing. It's permitted, even midrabanan, as long as it's being done for Shabbos need. So yeah, I'm just ripping open the chips or whatever. I'm not using it as a keli. I just want to it's totally destroyed. It has no usage. And it is permitted, therefore, to rip off a salami wrapper, for example, right? That tight, like plastic, whatever that's on the salami, since the wrapping is destroyed while it's being ripped. Thus, according to this approach, it's permitted to rip something on Shabbos only if the packaging will be destroyed as it is being opened. Other paiskim, however, like the Shvisas Shabbos, the Chazan Yechezkel, Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, see Igros Moshe, who agrees in principle with this approach. It's interesting. Before we said that Igros Moshe agrees with the other approach, but it seems that Moshe Feinstein seems to, at least in principle, agree with this approach, but he may have paskin more lemaisa like the Chaya Adam. But anyway, that's more to go into it another time. But basically, other paiskim say no. The reason it's permitted to rip the skin off the barrel or the wrapper off a package is because the wrapper is totally subordinate to its contents. So therefore, removing the wrapper is similar to removing a nutshell from a nut or the peel of a fruit, both of which are clearly permitted according to the Shulchan Aruch. It's not because, oh no, it won't have a use later. Who cares? It's bottled to the ikr. As long as
which ironically is one of the things that the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur, right before Kabbalah Shabbos, before Mincha Erev Shabbos. So there's a bunch of things that he warns about we should be very careful of, and one of the things is he says because the things, but again, in principle, he's not
nuts, nutshells.
But even then, it's not that he holds that it's that it's usher in principle. It's that he holds that because there's so many complications with then that if it's muktzah, if it's then taking it, how to take it out, and this and that it's so complicated that leave it alone. But in principle, really, he doesn't. He holds also that it's
right. It's not bedavka that it's usher. It's just because of all the other variables that come to play.
It's all these other
so better to do it.
Confusing parts of it that it's better to leave it alone. Yeah.
But yeah, so as long as one is tearing for the sake of removing the contents from a package, it's permissible to tear. According to this approach, it makes no difference if the package is destroyed in the process or not. Even if the wrapper remains partially intact and is able to retain its contents, tearing is permitted. So there's a major nafkamina in this approach. The first approach, the Chaya Adam, it has to be destroyed. You can't be able to use it for anything else. Can't use it to put it back on. You can't close it back up. You can't, etc. Meaning the potato chip bag has to be popped open, ripped, destroyed open. According to the second opinion, though, it could be opened. It could still even be used because it doesn't matter. It's butted to the main thing. Still, even according to this view, it's still forbidden to tear the packaging with the intent of reusing it at a later date, since in that case you're completing the formation of a utensil on Shabbos. It's makeh b'patish. So you can't open the chips saying I'm going to use it as a thing, as a container for the chips, to reuse it as a bag. But you can open it. Well, Lamaisa in the chips, maybe that's a more practical question you ask to local rabbi. But Bechlal, I'm saying as a random example, you can't open up such a thing saying I'm gonna reuse this. It's more, but I don't have to just totally destroy the packaging when I open it. Right. So let's say a soy milk carton or something, or orange juice carton or something like that. I don't have to cut it open with a knife. I can just cut it open, which I remember seeing that done. Where people, if the seal wasn't broken before Shabbos, what they do is they'd open up like the little carton, especially with those ones where you like turn it and it automatically cuts it open. So they'd open it up and immediately pour it into another pitcher. So they wouldn't use it even temporarily as a keli.
Right.
But there's other people who, according to the other opinion, who would say, no, even just opening that up is a problem. The only way to open that thing is take a knife to it and slice it open.
Right.
Give it a good, So now this debate has ramifications for opening cans. So now we're going to apply these two basic studies, two basic things. He's my chavrusa also.
What?
My chavrusa is my other chavrusa. The puppet, yeah. This machlekes has ramifications for opening cans on Shabbos as well. According to the Chazon Ish, when one opens a can, one completes the formation of utensil. What? Yeah, the puppet is talking to me. Before the can was opened, it was a closed shell, unusable as a utensil. After it is opened, it becomes a container which can serve as a utensil. Since it was not destroyed in the process of being opened, it's forbidden to be opened on Shabbos. Which, by the way, you want to talk about what is being destroyed. It's not destroyed in the sense that now it is usable. It's not. It's still a structure that holds the soda. But I would say it's destroyed in the sense that it doesn't keep it contained. The stuff can now spill out. So
Right.
part of its function is lost, but it's still the shape of it. That's why it's not just functionary.
Right. It's also
some things with makbeh patish,
it's holding of soda. It did already, so it's not. So
right.
that's not an added function.
Right. That's what I'm saying. With some things, right, with makbeh patish, it's what's the added function, or if this specific function is removed.
Or you improve
you
somehow improve the function.
The structure of the keli. The main structure of the keli is this thing can still hold liquid. It still has the ability to hold liquid. Just because it won't hold it sealed, it could spill out now. Yes, it lost some functionality, but the main, yeah, it's just interesting thing I'm thinking about. But anyway, so after it's open, it becomes a container which can serve as a utensil. Since it was not destroyed in the process of being open, it's forbidden to open on Shabbos. In the view of yet other paiskim, like the Hilul David, opening a can is not completing the formation of utensil, but rather it's breaking an existing utensil, which that's soiser. So he says, yeah, it's breaking, but it's breaking. So you're not allowed to do that either. So I don't think you're opening a utensil. It's a storage container and you just ruined it, but you're not allowed to break stuff. Break utensils. Anyway, the other paiskim mentioned earlier do not consider opening a can as completing the formation of utensil, nor do they consider opening a can as breaking an existing utensil. In their view, so the Chazon Ish says opening makes it a utensil. Tehillah David says it breaks the utensil. So they both say it's usher. The Chazon Ish and the Tehillah David both say it's usher. But the other place we mentioned earlier, I think we're talking about like the Chayi Adam and the Igus Moshe and Zaman Arbach and all these people, they don't hold it as either one. In their view, since cans are generally discarded after the contents are removed, no usable utensil is created. You didn't make something new, it's garbage. Opening a can is merely like the peeling off of a shell, which is a permissible activity. Indeed, if the can is made from durable material which is meant to last and be reused in the future, then it is prohibited according to all paiskim to open it on Shabbos. None of the leniencies mentioned above.
So, meaning in this case, he's simply holding it. It's like the shell, because its only purpose is to hold this soda. That's its only reason for being around.
You can Google this, but there was some guys who invented it was a biodegradable and actually edible. It was like kind of like a jelly kind of feel, like these little balls to replace all the plastic that ruins the environment from water bottles.
Right.
They were like these little gel balls, and inside was water. And so that was the whole thing. Like that's mamish appeal. Like you're just breaking it open. You really just want the water. Technically, it's edible, but it didn't taste good or anything. The gel balls were probably gross or completely tasteless, but technically, mamish just peels for the liquid.
Right. It's almost like one of those gel cap things or something or whatever.
Yeah. A gel cap for which is by the way, for certain medicines, right? They have like the gelatinous whatever made, it's just a container for the medicine that's inside.
Right. Yeah, and it has no purpose besides for to hold the medicine. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. But that's a different thing of whether, with regards to kashrus, if that's allowed or not. But that is one of the things
that's one of the
Anyway. Okay. So that was that. So now we said all that, but now question. Most bottle caps in use nowadays, they have a note. Bottle caps which lift off with a bottle opener may be removed. So we're not talking about those. Mishna, Berura, Chazon Ish, they both say about regular like beer bottle caps, whatever, where you're just popping them off. That's not the issue.
Right.
We're talking about the ones that when in production they get put down and then you turn it off, and then it leaves a ring around the bottleneck or perforated along the edge when the bottle is open. Is it permitted to open on Shabbos or Yom Tif? So discussion. This question is widely disputed amongst contemporary paiskim. The debate centers around two basic issues. Unscrewing a cap renders it a functional utensil, since before unscrewing it serves as a seal, and it now becomes a cap which may be used as a cover. Even if the cap was partially unscrewed before Shabbos, but remained attached to the ring, it is prohibited to unscrew it further on Shabbos, according to the Binyan Shabbos and Melechel Shabbos. Thus, the first time the cap is unscrewed, it completes the formation of a utensil, the bottle cap, which may be a violation of makabeh patish. And we'll see the explanation of that entire issue. You could see that over in Shulchan Shloimeh. But that was so number one is it could be a makabeh patish because by unscrewing the cap, you just made it into a functioning utensil.
Right.
Number two, which by the way, there's a whole thing that a lot of the Bible will bring up that very famously the Rebbe on Shabbos at a Fabrengen unscrewed like a mashke bottle or a soda bottle or a wine bottle, something like that. So it was like clearly showed Haraya that Rebbe held that it's not a problem, but
Right.
it's not so. I don't. By the way, I don't think that's even so simple.
Well,
I think
first of all, we don't even know what that bottle was. Like, was it
we don't know what the bottle was.
Was it
But
already
again,
opened
context.
beforehand? Was it already?
That doesn't mean, yeah, it doesn't mean it's totally mutter. First of all, it doesn't mean it's totally mutter. Even if it was totally sealed,
Right.
it means it could still be that lechatchila you're supposed to do it before Shabbos. But in this case, it was the last bottle of mashke. There was a tzarech gadol, tzarech mitzvah, etc.
Well, whatever
So
it
then,
is. Yeah.
so the Rebbe relied on, okay, the kula that we could do it in this case because this whatever. There's no more. Fine, but whatever. Anyway, whatever. It's an interesting discussion. I don't know. I wasn't there, so maybe ask Rabbanim who were there, but ask a Rav who was there, not just like a random guy in the crowd. But anyway, so
and it has to be a Rav who was there and didn't drink the prior bottles of mashke too. So
so he was sober. He was paying attention. He happened to be on medication, so he couldn't drink any mashke that day. So totally sober. Anyway, so then number two, so that was number one. Number two, unscrewing the cap at the perforated edge. Again, we're talking about perforated edges. That could be a violation of tearing, mechatech. You're cutting or tearing to a specific size. Right. Which lots of people are very familiar with. Halachas about that with regards to toilet paper. Cutting on the perforated edge, it's a very precise, measured cut, is a problem. Since the cap is being cut down to a specific size, there are conflicting views amongst the poskim in regard to the practical halacha. The same debate applies to plastic containers, which are sealed with a plastic lid, which is secured to the bottle by means of a plastic strip, which is pulled off in order to open the container, which so many dips that people open to use for Shabbos. Big problem. Also, most of the Shabbos dips are like that. They have a little plastic thing you're tearing open. So now there's three components to this. These conflicting views. Some poskim prohibit opening all bottle caps that leave a ring or perforate along the edge. Some consider it mechatech, while others consider it makabeh patish. The mechatech is Rabbi Yashiv. Suppose that, and makabeh patish is Rabbi Y.Y. Weiss, Rav N. Karelitz, the Minchas Asher, Rav Asher Weiss from Chicago. And one may, however, puncture a hole in the cap and then unscrew it. So you've just ruined it, which is, by the way, one of the things I try to do with soda. I'll try to, like, with a needle or a knife, just bust it, like make a little hole at the top, and then I'll open it regularly, and then I'll pour it out. And then to be extra careful, I'll then immediately pour it into a cup. So I don't even end up using it as a cape. So to try to, keep to as many opinions as I can. But obviously, this is bottled soda. I'll use that instead. But whatever, you go with what you can. Yeah, what you can rely on. You got to speak to your own rabbi about that. And the Shmir Shabbos Gilchasa, or better yet, puncture a wide hole in the cap and then pour the beverage through the punctured hole. Meaning, don't even use the regular pour hole. Use it through the busted hole. So you're not making it a measured cut spout. Okay, so that was number one. They say you're not allowed to do that because it's mechatech or makabeh patish, the perforated stuff. Some places can permit opening plastic bottle caps, but forbid opening the ones made from metal. So this is because plastic caps are functional even before they're screwed onto the bottle, as opposed to metal ones, which, due to differences in technology, become operational only after being unscrewed from the bottle the first time. It is, however, important to note that technology and manufacturing methods can and do change with time. It's quite possible that certain types of caps, which were permitted in the past, according to this view, no longer are. Further research is needed, which, by the way, that's a major component of the shir that Batzal Basman gives, the whole Smichas Chaver thing. It's this whole thing. They show videos of like production, and they really get into that. They really, at least they try to. They really try to get into the whole, like, how are things made and how does that change, It's very important. Some places can permit opening all bottle caps, since in their opinion, neither makabeh patish nor mechatech is being violated. And who do they say that is? Rev Y.Y. Fisher in Evan Yisrael, the Tzitz Eliezer, L'Haydus Nasan, Kinyan Teri, Chavadas, and Rev Y. Roth. Okay. Now, contemporary poskim are in agreement that it's us to open bottle caps which are stamped with the date of production, which you have. There are a lot of soda bottles actually that have that from the cap to the ring.
And they're by that band right there.
And it goes over both. Yeah. And so when opening it, you're busting the letters. And the letter formation will be broken and erased when unscrewing the bottle cap. So see the Mishnah Berura, and you'll see a different opinion in the Elyo Rabbah. Excuse me. So now, dry. Okay. Is it permitted to open a soda or tuna fish can on Shabbos? So in the opinion of Shalom Zalman Auerbach and many other places you agree as well, the Minchas Yisrael, the Chelkas Yaakov, it's permitted to open both a soda can or a tuna fish can on Shabbos. He explains that Makabeh Patish does not apply to any utensil that will be discarded after its contents are removed, even if the contents are not removed immediately, but will remain in the can for some time. So even if you're eating out of the tuna can, even if you're eating the herring out of the can, drinking the soda from the can. In addition, he holds that mechatech does not apply when lifting off a tab from a can or soda or beer, since one is not aiming to make a tab of a certain size. I just want the thing off. I'm not trying to make it a specific size. Okay, it was pre-cut to do so, but I don't care what size it is exactly. You're just trying to lift the tab off in the easiest way possible, and the easiest way is where the manufacturer perforated it. So there's other poskim who forbid the opening of all cans on Shabbos for various halachic reasons, either because of mechatech, makabeh patish, or soiser. Those three. And those would be, you can see Archas Shabbos, Chutei Shani. Okay. So those whose custom is to follow the more stringent opinion should continue to do so. See Igros Moshe, who in practice forbids opening all cans on Shabbos and Yom Tif, even though it is clearly permitted, in his opinion, according to the strict letter of the law. So Igros Moshe says you shouldn't be opening said cans. Now, okay, next question. Is it permitted to rip off the packaging of wine bottles, coffee jars, candy bars, paper goods, sugar packets, or other items necessary for Shabbos? I need some sugar in my coffee. I need to get that plastic thing, especially, it's one of the annoying things. There's a lot of wine bottles. You can take that little plastic thing and you could slide it off.
Yeah.
Like the difference is the most classic, my two favorite wines, Joyvin and Bartonura. Joyvin, the red thing, you could slide it right off. Bartonura has this like sticker of Gorelick. For some reason, he has this like sticker seal over. You can't lift that off. You have to cut it off. And it's annoying on Shabbos because I have to like take a knife and try to carefully cut it and get it out of the way.
Right.
Yeah, it's very bothersome. But here we have a thing. Okay, so and that's because there's also letters. It's not just the opening, but it's also
you can't,
letter.
so you can't just cut right through it either. Yeah.
So now this entire paragraph is based on the rulings of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and there are dissenting opinions as well. See the Knei Boisem for a review. But now, according to Rav Shlomo Zalman, it is permitted to rip off or tear a wrapper which surrounds wine or grape juice bottle caps, candy bars, freeze pops, or any items necessary for Shabbos. It's permitted to rip off a seal that covers the contents of a container, such as the inside seal of a coffee jar or an aluminum foil seal on the yogurt container, etc. When tearing any packaging, one should be careful to avoid tearing any letters or pictures. Simple designs such as a square or a frame are not considered pictures. So it has to be a complicated picture. If it's just a basic shape, you're okay. It is permitted to cut or tear between the letters of a word or between words. So you might be worried, well, okay, I don't want to erase, so I'm cutting between the word. No, it's just the actual letter. The ICS are the problem. So if you could get it between the letter, even though you just split, the word the or because, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It is permitted to poke a hole and insert a straw into bags or boxes which contain beverages. So you can, like the juice boxes or juice bags, pop a hole in that. And it's from other poskim who quote Rav Shlomo Zalman. Now, next question, is it permitted to rip open a corrugated box which contains packages of cookies or paper goods? Is it permitted? It is permitted to rip off the tape which seals this kind of box, but it is forbidden to open such a box if the flaps are glued together tightly and must be separated to open. So like brand new box of cereal, it is problematic.
Right. Or like sometimes like with wine boxes and things like this.
Yeah, like the case of wine or whatever.
Where they're glued, they're actually glued rather than a piece of tape across it.
Right. Corrugated boxes are often reused after the contents are removed, and one is particular to open them in a manner which is not destructive, so it can be reused. This may be a violation of tearings. See the Aruch Shabbos. But it is permitted to open a cookie or cereal box or bag, even if one does not immediately empty out its contents, and even if the box or bag is not destroyed in the process. It makes no difference if the box is made out of cardboard, plastic, or paper. Nor does it make a difference if the box contains food or something else, such as medicine, clothing, or toys. If you have a box of toys or clothes, you're allowed to open it. I got a bag, whatever, a new package of undershirts.
Whatever is anything, something that you have use for.
Yeah, it's only a problem if it's as long as it's the category that we know as disposable. It's okay. It's only a problem to open a container which is made of a strong, long-lasting material, such as a barrel or a corrugated box, which might be reused in the future. We see also the Binyan Shabbos for a comprehensive review of the entire subject. There are dissenting opinions, though, who are stringent and forbidden opening all boxes or bags. That's what I'm saying. I mentioned the cereal box because I have seen that before. People who are mocking about that. So you got to ask your Rav, what's your opinion? But according to Rav Shlomo Zalman, it's fine as long as it's disposable. It's fine.
And just note, I think this all goes back to what I think was it that Amo was saying in the end of the Siman. In terms of we're talking about if something the rope. No, we're talking about the rope. That the rope,
if it's a loose rope, right?
It's the rope around that holds the barrel you're allowed to cut, because it's a what was the word he used, it's a less quality, it's a lower quality thing. It's not
yeah, I don't remember.
So it seems to be al derech also. The what do you call it? He said
excuse me. Oh no! Wait.
Remember, he said even that if it's tied with ropes, even a Jew himself can open it, not just through a non-Jew.
Right.
And that came down to the fact that it's something that's made out of a lesser material, out of a garbagey material, basically.
Right. So now there was a halacha lamaisa question for all the tatis out there, and kindalach at hearts. Keep your head down. Okay. Lebanon or yogurt cups sometimes come attached to each other. So again, we said, of course, the aluminum foil on the thing, we said, yeah, that's fine. But what about the fact when these things are attached to each other? So harder plastic, it's more sturdy.
This is very common in Israel with those little puddings.
The puddings, yeah, exactly.
Pudding things,
exactly,
that for them, and they're yeah.
So yeah, exactly.
Or in the U.S., it's more common, I think, with sometimes fruit cups is like this, or Jello.
Some fruit cups, yeah, some fruit cups do. Some fruit cups, it depends on the packaging. More modern ones with the box don't, but yeah, some fruit cups still do. Yeah, a lot of the Jellos or puddings or whatever do that. Yeah. Anyway, so they must be separated along a perforated line before they can be eaten individually. Is that permitted to be done on Shabbos? So contemporary poskim debate whether or not it's permitted to separate attached yogurt or lebanon cups from each other. Some consider it a violation of mechatech and makabepatish, while others hold it is permitted altogether. The ones who hold mechatech and makabepatish, see Rabbi Yashiv holds that, and Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach holds that it's totally permitted. General note, even if one mistakenly opened a can or bottle in a manner which is clearly prohibited, it is not forbidden to then eat that food or beverage. It's very clear, something that has to be made clear. Don't worry, it's not us. There's no knas that then you're not allowed to eat that thing. All right. Now we have a question, though. Opening cans for others. It is 7:30. I think I can squeeze this in, though. It's a shorter one. And then we'll wrap with that. Opening cans for others. May one who does not open cans or bottles on Shabbos ask another person who does do so to open a can or soda bottle on his behalf? Can I ask another Jew who holds of that way?
That's a very good question.
I just don't want to do it. Can I use a Shabbos Jew?
For example, I don't open cans on Shabbos.
Yeah,
but often I'm somewhere where other people do.
Right, and you have in certain couples and families. Maybe the husband's more machmir. Maybe sometimes it's the wife is more machmir. Yeah, can my spouse do it for me if I don't hold it? Or my kid or whatever. So the answer will depend upon the reason why the first person does not open cans or bottles on Shabbos. One who does not do so because he adheres to the halachic opinion that asers it, this could be because he himself has studied the subject and has concluded it's definitely forbidden to open a soda can or bottle on Shabbos, even if he didn't come to it on his own conclusions, but he accepts the opinion of the halachic authorities who forbid doing so as an absolute and binding, not merely a chumrah due to his lack of familiarity with the sources and intricacies of the subject. So, but basically, if you mamish hold, oh yeah, I agree with that guy who says it's usher, then you can't ask somebody else to open that can on your behalf. This is because he's asking the other person to do something which is not halachically permitted. If, however, it's only a personal stringency, but in theory, I agree that it's permissible. I want to be machmir. I want to be careful. Like, so for me, I think just personally, just trying to speak honestly, I just more do it because if possible, I'd like to do something according to all opinions. But Lamaisa, I'm going to go with, I guess, without that, what the basic psak is, especially and rely on what the basic psak is. But Bichlal, I'd like to do what's the most machmir, especially because Shabbos, you don't want to mess about. But Lamaisa, I still hold that's kosher. Like if someone asked me, I say, okay, you could be machmir and do it this way, but yeah, it's fine to do it. Like, I'm not gonna.
The bottom line is how do you hold it is la halacha. La halacha. Do you follow that you can't open it, or do you follow you can, but I don't.
He's allowed to ask another person to open soda can't stop one result. In this case, the other person is not performing a halachically forbidden action. Same principle applies in other areas of halacha. We'll mention two common Shabbos situations, which is great because right now this is exactly stuff. This next example comes up here in Pittsburgh. May one who does not use the city Eruv for carrying on Shabbos ask another person who does use the Eruv to carry on his behalf. If in his opinion or in the opinion of its halachic authority, Rabbi, he asked, the Eruv is not valid and may not be used at all, then he may not ask another person to carry for him either. But if in his opinion or in the opinion of his halachic authority, the Eruv is fine, and he chooses to be stringent and not use the Eruv, it's permitted to ask another person to carry on his behalf. So I'm very careful when I talk about the Eruv, especially here in Pittsburgh.
I was actually just going to say the same thing with because I have that. For example,
that's what I'm saying.
Now in my family, I actually don't use the Eruv. My wife does.
Right.
But,
which
obviously shows that I hold it's a good Eruv.
I came up with Rabbi Darren, I don't take advantage of the Eruv. It's not that I don't hold of the Eruv. It was a very good Eruv as far as community Eruv.
No, so there's a question like that because, for example,
there
are places where we hold that the Eruv is not a good Eruv.
Right.
Even though somebody else might hold it's a good Eruv, and in that case, you can't have that person.
He's following a Rav. I still eat at his house. He's following a halachic Orthodox Rav.
However, I don't hold it's a good Eruv.
But I can't ask him to carry my talis bag just because I'm going to his house for lunch. I hold it's mamish, not halachically okay. Can't do that. Not cool. So yeah, we had that. We went for a friend's wedding to Boston, and so I called and I asked the local rabbi. He said, "Yeah, it's a kosher Eruv." So, but we were like, "Yeah, we just don't like using the Eruv." So we were there for a wedding. So the Kala arranged one of her friends to come meet us at the house, and she pushed the stroller for us. It was very nice of her, and it was great. We had a great time. We became friends because we were walking together. But yeah, it's like you gotta whatever works for you, But it's also very important. One of the reason why I was very particular about the language about this Eruv, because also you don't want to end up making a sort of shvua or neder about yourself. I don't use the Eruv. If you say that, then you can't use the Eruv. And what happens if, and that's not true, especially for me. If we're in a pinch, there was a Shabbos, my wife wasn't feeling well, all three little kids, she needed to sleep. So I threw them all in the stroller and I brought them to shul. It's not something that's why I very particularly use the language. I don't use the Eruv. I don't usually take advantage of the Eruv. It's not absolute. It's not always. No, there are times I do take advantage of the Eruv. Bechalal, I don't. There was a time we were walking back from my brother-in-law's around the corner, and we're walking up our hill, and my nephew, suddenly we had to use the bathroom. My son, I'm sorry, not my nephew. Son, we had to use the bathroom. He wasn't walking quickly. I picked him up and I ran up the hill. I'd rather make use the Eruv, make the bathroom than have to deal with an accident in the middle of the street. Anyways, to quickly wrap up, may a person who keeps Shabbos until 72 minutes past sunset ask another person who waits less than 72 minutes to perform a forbidden Shabbos labor for him before 72 minutes are up? Again, it will depend on the previously mentioned principle. If waiting 72 minutes is based on a strict halachic interpretation, then asking someone else to do a forbidden labor is like asking him to violate Shabbos. So the whole thing which I have friends, they don't make Havdalah, they don't say Ma'ariv. Exactly. If, however, keeping 72 minutes is a personal stringency or family custom, then halachically it's just it's fine. So it's permitted to ask another person who does not have this stringency or custom to transgress Shabbos on one's behalf. So you have some people who are machmir, especially in Monsey. I was there by Shabbos. We were doing Kiddush Levana. One of those guys could have asked me to turn on the light so they could see the siddur and make Kiddush Levana. Well, the mice said they wouldn't get in our car for us to give them a ride home because they're still keeping it for another whatever. But that's different than they could have asked me to,
No, because after all, a chumrah is still a chumrah.
Yeah. But so now this entire discussion is based on the Darkei Tshuva, the Igros Moshe, Rav Auerbach, Shulchan Shleima, the Shevet HaLevi, and the Minchas Usher. Okay, I gotta bounce. Right, everybody. Good. We will pick up with basically the second Mishna Berura on Halacha Aleph of Shin Yud Dalet.
All right, beautiful.